The night air was cool, but her chest burned with anger. Emily's heels clicked on the marble floor as she entered the vast garden of roses that glowed under hidden lights. She hated the deal her family had made. Marry a man she didn't know. Marry a man in a wheelchair, a powerful CEO she had never even met. In the distance, a figure sat silently. Black suit, sharp jawline, dark hair slightly ruffled by the breeze. Daniel Ward. The youngest self-made CEO in the city. The man who controlled empires yet could not stand on his own legs. Emily stopped a few feet away. She had imagined a bitter, cruel man. Instead, his gaze was calm, almost sad. A single rose rested on his lap. He held it out to her without a word. She didn't take it. Her voice trembled. "You don't even know me." Daniel's tone was low and even. "I don't need to. This isn't about us. It's about business." Emily flinched. She knew her father's company was drowning. Daniel's proposal had been the only lifeline, but the price had been her freedom. She stared at the roses around them. So many perfect blooms. She felt small among their beauty, trapped among their thorns. Daniel studied her face. "You hate this," he said quietly. "I can see it." She nodded. "I hate being used." He didn't defend himself. He simply set the rose on the armrest of his chair. "Then hate me, but don't hate the roses." The moment was strangely gentle, and it broke something inside her. She stepped closer, knelt beside him, and picked up the rose. The petals were soft against her skin. For a heartbeat, their eyes met. She saw strength behind his calm mask. He saw a fire she didn't bother to hide. "I won't be silent," she whispered. "I wouldn't respect you if you were," he replied. The wind shifted, carrying the scent of roses. Somewhere deep inside, a small, reluctant curiosity stirred. Neither of them knew it yet, but this forced union would not stay cold. It would test their limits. It would break walls. It would heal wounds deeper than scars. Emily's fingers brushed his hand as she stood. A spark, brief but undeniable, passed between them. Daniel's gaze followed her as she turned toward the mansion. The deal had been sealed on paper, but tonight, under a sky full of stars and roses, something far more dangerous had begun. But tonight, under a sky full of stars and roses, something far more dangerous had begun. Emily walked back toward the mansion, her pulse still unsteady. The quiet of the halls felt heavy. Inside, her father's laughter with the Ward family partners echoed like a reminder of the bargain she could not escape. She pressed her palms against the wall, steadying her breath. Behind her, Daniel wheeled himself inside. His movements were smooth, practiced, silent. He stopped a few feet from her. "You're shaking," he said softly. "I'm fine," she replied too quickly. "No, you're not." His voice wasn't sharp but firm enough to stop her from pretending. Emily turned to face him. The dim light from the chandelier cast shadows on his features. "You don't have to act like you care. This is business, nothing more." Daniel studied her, his eyes unreadable. Business doesn't have to be cruel. She swallowed hard. She had expected arrogance, not this quiet steadiness. It unsettled her. The wedding was held 2 days later. No music, no celebration. Just a contract disguised as a ceremony. Emily wore a simple white dress. Daniel wore black, his wheelchair polished like armor. Their hands touched briefly when the vows were spoken. The touch was formal, but her chest tightened anyway. That night, Emily stood alone on the balcony of Daniel's mansion. The city lights shimmered below. The wind tugged at her hair. She whispered to herself, "I'm married to a stranger." Behind her, wheels rolled over marble. "You don't have to whisper," Daniel said. She didn't turn. "You already know." "Yes," he admitted. "And yet here we are." Emily glanced over her shoulder. He looked impossibly calm, framed by the night. "Why me?" she asked, quietly. His answer was slow. Because you're not like them, you don't flatter, you don't fake, I needed someone real. His words hit her harder than she expected. But she pushed back. You don't even know if I can survive this world you live in. I've survived worse, he said. You'll survive me. For a moment, they just looked at each other. Two people bound by circumstance, standing on the edge of something neither of them could name. The following morning, Emily wandered through the rose garden again. She reached for a bloom and pricked her finger on a thorn. Blood beaded on her skin. She hissed. Daniel appeared beside her. He must have followed quietly. He took her hand without asking, wrapped his handkerchief around the small wound. His touch was careful, deliberate. You should be more careful, he said. You're the one who put me among the thorns, she whispered. He almost smiled, almost. And you're the one who keeps walking back. His words lingered long after he left. For the first time, she wondered if this marriage could be more than a contract. Deep down, she feared what that possibility might awaken in her heart. The roses swayed gently in the wind. Somewhere within their fragile petals, a shift had begun. The roses swayed gently in the wind. Somewhere within their fragile petals, a shift had begun. Emily stood there longer than she meant to, clutching the handkerchief Daniel had wrapped around her finger. His steadiness haunted her thoughts. She had expected to despise him, but each quiet gesture chipped at her anger. Later that day, she followed the sound of piano music drifting through the mansion. She peeked into a grand room. Daniel sat at a polished piano, his wheelchair positioned perfectly. His fingers moved over the keys with precision. The melody was soft, but carried a quiet ache. Emily stepped inside. I didn't know you played. Daniel looked up briefly. I don't, not well. It's therapy for my legs. Movement, rhythm. My doctor says it helps. She approached cautiously, drawn to the music. It doesn't sound like therapy. It sounds like a memory. He didn't answer right away. Finally, he said, It was my mother's favorite piece. She used to tell me that pain fades when you create something beautiful. Emily felt her throat tighten. For a long moment, she simply listened. In the following days, she began noticing small things. Daniel rising earlier than anyone to push himself through grueling exercises with a physical therapist. The way he focused, jaw tight, refusing help, even when sweat darkened his shirt. One evening, rain poured outside as thunder rolled through the hills. Emily found him struggling to transfer from his chair to the exercise bars. His hand slipped. He fell hard to the floor. She rushed forward, heart racing. Daniel! Don't! He snapped, voice edged with frustration. He tried to pull himself up, but winced. Pain flashed across his face. Emily knelt beside him. You don't have to do this alone. His breath came unevenly. I do. People see weakness and they take everything. Not me, she said firmly. Something in her tone made him stop fighting. Together, they lifted him back into the chair. Their faces were close, their breathing shallow. That night, Emily sat awake in her room, the storm still whispering outside. She couldn't stop thinking about his stubbornness, his quiet strength, and the loneliness in his eyes. The next morning, she joined him for therapy. You'll do better with someone cheering you on, she said. He raised an eyebrow. Cheering? Yes. You do the work. I'll be the annoying voice telling you not to quit. Daniel smirked faintly. For the first time, his guarded expression softened. Days turned into weeks. The distance between them shrank. Emily brought coffee to the training room, teased him when he cursed under his breath, and caught his chair when it rolled unexpectedly. They laughed more than they realized. One afternoon, under a sky washed clean by rain, Daniel took a cautious step between the parallel bars. It was small, shaky, but it was a step. Emily's hands hovered near his arms, ready if he faltered. He looked at her, breathless but grinning. Did you see that? Her chest swelled with pride. I saw everything. Their laughter carried across the garden, mixing with the scent of roses and the sound of distant birds. Something unspoken connected them now. Not duty, not a deal. Something fragile and growing. That night, Daniel paused at her door. He hesitated, then knocked once. Emily, he said quietly. Thank you. She opened the door halfway, her heart racing. For what? For believing I could stand again. Their eyes held. In the quiet hallway, their world felt smaller, closer, and far more dangerous than any contract ever could. Their eyes held. In the quiet hallway, their world felt smaller, closer, and far more dangerous than any contract ever could. Emily stepped back slightly, her breath uneven. Daniel, you don't have to thank me. He wheeled forward, close enough for her to feel the warmth of his presence. I do, because until you, I stopped believing anyone could see more than this chair. The words hung between them. Emily's heart ached. She reached out, hesitated, then rested her hand on his shoulder. You're not your chair. You're more than... What happened to you? Daniel's jaw tightened, but his eyes softened. You make me want to fight harder. The next morning, sunlight broke through the curtains, spilling across the training room floor. Emily stood beside him as he gripped the bars. Sweat beaded on his brow. He moved one leg, then the other, slow but steady. Again, she urged, quietly. He pushed through the pain. Another step. And another. Emily's hands hovered near his back, ready to catch him. Finally, he let out a breathless laugh. I'm walking. She grinned through tears. You're walking. Over the following weeks, the mansion felt different. Daniel practiced each day, pushing farther. Emily walked beside him, sometimes teasing, sometimes silent, always there. At night, they shared quiet dinners, conversations that dug deeper than either expected. One evening, the roses outside bloomed brighter than ever. Emily and Daniel stood in the garden. He was upright now, leaning lightly on a cane. He held a single red rose and turned to her. I used to believe love wasn't for men like me, he said. Then you showed up, angry and unwilling, and somehow you healed more than my legs. Emily's eyes brimmed with tears. You healed me too. He took a careful step closer and pressed the rose into her hands, their fingers intertwined. The world around them blurred, just roses, wind, and two hearts finding their way. But happiness was never a perfect picture. Business partners began to whisper about Daniel's recovery and their marriage. Some doubted their love, calling it a strategy. Old rivals threatened to exploit any weakness. One night, Daniel found a letter slid under his door. A threat. A reminder that power breeds enemies. He folded it quietly, not wanting to burden Emily. But as he stood alone in the study, he realized he was no longer the man who bore pain alone. Emily appeared in the doorway, eyes searching his face. What's wrong? He hesitated, then handed her the letter. She read it, her hands shaking. They're trying to break you. They won't, he said, voice steady. She stepped closer, chin lifted. They won't break us. Daniel felt something fierce and unshakable ignite between them. Weeks later, under a sky painted in twilight, Daniel walked unaided across the garden toward her. Emily's hands flew to her mouth, tears spilling as he reached her. He stopped in front of her, breathing hard but smiling. You once said you hated being used, he whispered. I promise with me, you'll only ever be loved. She dropped the rose she was holding and threw her arms around him. Their embrace was quiet, but full of every battle, every doubt, every small miracle they had shared. The roses swayed gently in the evening wind. Their story had begun in anger and duty, but now it was bound by choice. Somewhere in the distance, thunder rumbled faintly, as if to remind them life would still test them. But here, in this garden, surrounded by fragile blooms and fierce hearts, they stood together, strong, unbroken, and in love.